Welcome back to another episode of Elevate Renovate. My name is Michael Kern, your host. I'm the design build consultant here at LBK Design Build, and today we're going to be tackling one of the more important commonly asked questions. Should I sell my home versus renovating my existing home? I'm joined here today to my right, President of LBK, Nick Cordia, and to my left, Paul Augustine of the Augustine team. Appreciate you guys joining. Thank you very much. So I wanted to jump into the important topic of where it makes sense to either put your home on the market, looking to possibly renovate the home, and what are some of those key factors that a family should be considering before making a final decision. So Paul, first off, thank you for joining.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Yeah,
Sure. As well.
I'm a lifelong resident of Horsham. Grew up there, still live there today with my family. I've been in the real estate business for 21 years now. And prior to when I first got out of high school up until I entered the business in my mid-20s, I was in construction myself for a while. So I was in trades, plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and did a bit of work with the last company that I worked for, did a lot of high-end additions, renovation, remodels. So I kind of know the space you guys are in a little bit. It's in my distant past, but I remember it enough to remember, just the magnitude of things that people hired you to do, and that whole design and build process, and customizing a space for somebody so they could kind of stay there and really enjoy it. It was cool. It was what I really enjoyed about that part of work, and carry forward into my work in real estate. Now I think it gives me an eye for the possibilities of things, either homes that our existing clients own or ones they're looking at that they're maybe don't quite fit the bill from a layout standpoint, but certainly are in the location they want or have a lot of other boxes checked. So I can kind of always see those possibilities.
Yeah. And I know we've been working together for about a year and a half now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you've helped out a few of your previous clients.
You have, yeah.
Remodeling certain spaces, and they found themselves in the same position, right?
Transformed it. They've been thrilled, and
Remodeling. So what would you say the current market is right now? Is it a buyer's market? Is it more of a seller's market? A mixture of both?
The scale is still tipped largely in favor of sellers because we still have a shortage of existing supply and new builds occurring in relation to the net population growth in the U.S. And that's been something that's been going on for the last decade. So compound that with the fact that we have a large camp of existing homeowners who have I call the golden handcuffs, right? So they either bought or refinanced in a mortgage lending market that was in and around 3%. There's some people who are sitting on high 2s to like mid 3s interest rates. And so they may not love the space that they're in, but they love that payment, And so over the last couple of years, as rates, jumped pretty quickly into the 6s and 7s, there were certainly plenty of clients I got in front of who were like probably ready for a move, but they looked at the numbers aspects of it and not just the cost to sell and cost to buy, but the cost to borrow at that higher rate versus what they were sitting on presently. And they're like, we're going to sit tight for another couple of years. So that has kept a lot of would-be movers at bay. There's projections that in 2026, we're going to see rates kind of tip back into the 5s, like high 5s. And we think that's going to get a decent camp of existing home sellers who are kind of in that position off the shelf. Mm-hmm. And it's also going to bring a lot of existing renters or aspiring homeowners into the marketplace to buy that first home. It makes it affordable again for them. So, absolutely. Yeah. As far as the speed of the market, it really is so case by case. So we'll see stuff that comes on market. It's up for 3 days and there's multiple offers and it's still competitive. Mm-hmm. And then there's other markets where things are sitting around for a couple months and some of our buyer clients are getting pretty good deals on those. So it's kind of all across the board.
Yeah, me and my wife were in the same position when we bought our house. Mm-hmm. Very competitive interest rates. So yeah, totally get it. Yeah, thoughts?
Yeah, I think in respect to just the housing market, I see remodeling just staying strong right now. And all the Harvard housing futures and studies show that it's going to stay that way through 2030, mainly because I think a lot of that throwaway mentality isn't there so much for homes that are like between when people bought them at like a $650,000 level, maybe 5+ years ago, all the way through up $1 million. They have great rates, 2.5%, 3%, all these magical rates that we can't touch anymore these days. We see a lot of folks staying home and then hiring us to do additions or remodels just to redesign the space to match their lifestyle and their family. But additions are really popular, and we're seeing a lot of like elevators aging in place type projects come across our way. But that seems to be the trend the last 2 years, and I don't really see it stopping anytime soon.
I have to imagine it helps you too. Like, let's say, people who have bought 3+ years ago, they've seen such a significant gain in their equity that when you step in there to do a larger project for them, they have enough equity in the home that it's viable for them to do that if they have to leverage some of the costs of that or whatever be the case. I think the other thing I've seen change in my 21 years in the business is the average amount of time that people are staying in place. So the average holding period for a property. And there were times, historically it had been about 7 or 8 years. There were times when the market was really red hot when those rates were real low, or like it dipped down to like 5 years. So a lot of people were like not staying very long because they had such a substantial equity gain. They could go somewhere else. It's starting to increase again. So now we're starting to see where people are staying on average 9+ years. So you get into those longer holding periods, you can justify doing some more significant renovating to your home.
When you're meeting with clients in the home, from a demographic standpoint, what would you say that the typical age range is that you're seeing new home buyers?
Well, that's another number that's jumped significantly over the years. So when I got in the business in 2005, the age of the average first-time home buyer was somewhere around 25 or 26 years old. It's now 37 or 38. It's actually the oldest in recorded history, and a lot of different things have shifted along the way. So, way back when, the first-time buyers often will buy that entry-level little just like small 2-bedroom condo or townhouse or a small single home, and they'd outgrow it pretty quickly. Maybe they bought it by themselves, then they meet Mr. and Mrs. Right, and now they're getting married and kind of merging households, so now they buy the next house. So there was a stepping stone approach into the forever home. We're seeing a lot of homeowners, first-time homeowners, skipping those first couple steps and really jumping right into the forever home because they're older, number one. Mm-hmm. They're making significantly more money. And for a while, their interest rates were so low that the payments were so attractive. That's also part of what I think made segments of our market so hyper-competitive, is there are all these different camps of home buyers competing for the same inventory, and so
we're seeing that being reflected in the new home industry as well. If you notice, there's been a cutout of the middle. So there's even large builders like Toll, for example, they're doing these like $1.5 million plus developments that are like more custom homes, and then instead of doing the cookie cutter type developments that they used to do, they've shifted more towards townhouses. So lots of like those Town Walk and those areas, they're all these townhouses and they're beautiful, but they're still townhomes as opposed to, single family homes in like the 3,500 to 4,000 square foot range. Yeah. And then apart from that, they're doing these really large scale homes as well. So it kind of speaks to that market changing with the age range, demographic, and what people can really afford today to buy, especially at a young age.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true. And I think that, I'm in my mid 40s, so I'm a little older than the average first time home buyer, but I know the way, my demographic kind of thinks. And a lot of times it's not about just having like the biggest house with the biggest yard. It's about lifestyle beyond home ownership, right? So the simplicity of like some of those townhouses, for example, like it's like, hey, I don't have to worry about anything on the weekend. I can go out and play golf or go ride my bike or whatever.
Vacation once in a while.
Yeah, go vacation some more, so there are all those considerations. Whereas, rewind to 20 years ago, some of the housing stock that was built, like in our area, like in Makefields and such like that, there are 5+ acre properties with huge in-ground pool. Like, it's not that people don't buy and own those types of homes anymore. It's just that a lot of times people look at like, what is the overall cost to carry this thing? And like, what do I need to have a good lifestyle, but not a lot of upkeep, and I can enjoy life in other aspects.
What are you seeing clients when they are looking to purchase a new home? Are they going into these homes thinking and planning for a renovation? What I mean by that is like they find a house and they feel like the location makes sense for them. They tour it, they love it, and they're planning for that future renovation.
Sometimes it's, we tell our home sellers that if you can deliver what looks and feels like a finished product to the marketplace, that's going to have the most mass appeal. So I would still say that 70-80% of home buyers want to walk into something they can see themselves like unpacking boxes and just living in. Mm-hmm. But there is that camp of like, the other 20 to 30% who like to put their own mark on their space and are creative enough and, kind of can envision. They have that vision like, oh, I can open up this wall. I could, the kitchen's a little small, but I don't need a formal dining room. I can merge that space and make it one big thing. Or, hey, the basement's not finished, but that's easy enough to do. Or whatever it may be, they have that vision to do it. So I think you have a little bit of both. I will say that the home buyers that are most willing to get into something that's going to need some work, they're usually looking at specific neighborhoods or subdivisions or locales, and they're like, we really want to be here. And if the shell of the space works and it's not 100% where it needs to be condition-wise, we're okay doing some work after we buy it, So that's when you see people jumping right in and doing renovations right away. In most cases, it's because it's in a specific area they really want to be in.
So what are some of the first questions when you're talking to a homeowner and they're deciding whether or not to either stay or put their house on the market? Mm-hmm. What are some of the first questions from a realtor's perspective that you want to know?
So we'll have a lot of our past clients reach out and say, hey, we're on the fence here. We really, really love where we're at, but we're missing a little bit of space, and we're trying to decide whether to add onto it and just stay put, or, just buy something that's totally different that fits the bill. And so I think it comes down to a couple of things. I always ask them, well, what kind of renovation do you have in mind? What rooms are missing, or what spaces are missing, or what is it about the house right now that's not going to work for you any longer? And then once I have a framework for what that looks like, I obviously am familiar with the home if it's a past client. I can say, okay, I know what it was when I sold it to you, and based on what you're describing, let me just do some market research and give you a sense for, if you do this project, this is what it's going to be worth once you do all that work, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'll get them that information, and then in touch with you, like I had done with some of our other clients, and then they go through that process of okay, what's going to cost for us to do that build, And so I think it's a cost benefit analysis, and it's more than just how much more is the house going to be worth, and then how much is going to cost for you guys to come in and do the work that they want to do. It's also if we don't go that route and instead we decide to move, there are obviously costs to make that kind of transition. So there's a cost to sell, there's a cost to buy, right? And so when you factor in those, costs and frankly the inconvenience of it, sometimes even if they're not going to add dollar for dollar value on the renovation, the fact that they don't have to pack up, unpack, do all those things, and then have those costs to buy and costs to sell in and out, sometimes it's still a wash, and they're like, hey, this makes a lot of sense, Absolutely. Sometimes they look into it and they just realize that for whatever reason, if they're on a smaller lot and there's not enough building envelope to add the footprint they need, or the cost of it is really going to be prohibitive and they could just do better by moving, then they decide to do that instead, But it really, it's case by case, so.
So for many families, the sentimental value is staying put. How would you advise, clients from an emotional standpoint? Mm-hmm. So when I say that, I think of more of family being local, mm-hmm. school districts and friends.
School districts are big.
That's got to be a tough conversation to have with mm-hmm. clients that you've had in the past that you first sold the home to, and for sure 20 years has gone by, and now they're ready to sell it.
My head's just reeling on all the different scenarios. Mom and dad live next door and they don't want to move for mom and dad, but they don't have enough house, enough space, or mom and dad are in the home, but they're they can't be there on their own anymore, so now they're trying to fit out that space where everybody can live in it. That's something that's been on the rise. So multi-generational housing, 20 years ago, I think it was 1 in 11 or 1 in 12 U.S. households were multi-generational, meaning mom and or dad lived with the kids or vice versa. And so they needed that fitted out in-law, quarters type space, or, it's now risen to 1 in 7 or 1 in 8, and so from a marketability standpoint, making that kind of improvement where you take a house that you have and fitting it out with a full in-law quarters, there's going to be a demand for that in marketplace, and the buyers who are out there looking for that kind of space know the kind of money they're going to spend to buy something without it and then add it on later. So if they can find it already fully fitted out, they'll pay a premium for it. You know what I mean? It's so we're seeing where that type of space is really, I think just the value of it and the desirability of it is boosted. So. But yeah, when it comes down to sentimental things hey, we really love the school district, or the kids are in the elementary and all their friends are in this neighborhood. That's when you see people willing to overspend. They just feel like their roots are planted where they are, mm-hmm. and they don't want to uproot that. It's not going to be easy to uproot it and find something that they're as comfortable with, So it can definitely play into it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know we're going to be doing a future seminar, I believe in March, discussing that exact topic, the in-law suites. Expanding the existing footprint, mm-hmm. generational households, absolutely. Yeah.
And the advisement we give when we see that type of project on the rise, along with the aging in place, it's not just aging in place, it's the multi-generational living within a single home. And it's usually the kids taking in their parents as they get older, mm-hmm. for a few reasons. One being the rising costs of retirement homes and assisted living facilities. And then also just a strategic move with the real estate, right? So adding either an ADU or a large suite addition that increases not only are you saving money by having mom and dad live at home with you and not in a nursing home, you keep that family tight as well. So there's also that benefit. But then additionally, the value of the property goes up because now you've added the footprint, you added additional square footage, or you've added an accessory dwelling unit, additional separate space with separate entrances. And now, hypothetically, when they go to sell the house in 10, 20, 30 years, the real estate value is actually higher than when they purchased the home.
More and more people have been and will be looking for that space for all the reasons you cited. It's just so expensive to buy, in age qualified housing. Like the cost of those have just jumped significantly.
Sometimes we'll use a morbid. I'll use a morbid example where I said, all right, if mom, for example, is moving in because she has health issues and she's kind of elderly, and we say, all right, if we look at the average cost of a home, it's about $130,000 a year in America. And then if we know she's going to live at least 5 years, and we multiply that 130 times 5, and then reflect that against the cost of an addition or a separate structure altogether, they kind of even out. But then on the flip side, you gain the real estate value, so it's a win-win.
Yeah. That's a really good way.
It's a morbid example, but it does work.
It's a good way to look at it. Though. I don't think
it's a realistic
cost
view.
to keep. Yeah, and then the larger question besides the monetary cost is like, where is mom or dad going to be more comfortable too? They probably want to be close to their family, really, frankly, and that's a big deal too. Usually, we say there's always that old adage like it's too close for comfort.
I know,
but in some cases it's probably.
You gotta make sure you live together for at least a year before you go down the rabbit hole of the expense of in-laws.
Yeah. Not to jump off topic because I think this is an important one to cover, but I say the same thing to people about kitchen renovations. Like, live in it and work in the space you've got for a year and really start to envision what you want to do, because what you think you would design today is going to change, especially if you're into cooking and all that stuff. Like, you're going to see a million different ideas like as you work through that over like the first year or so of ownership. You will design and do it differently after working in it for a while.
You're spot on. I mean, as the owner of a design build, we moved into our current home a year and a half ago, and then we remodeled it and finished it a few months ago. And it included the whole first floor, the kitchen, and then we have a Cape Cod, so our master suite's on the first floor. But initially when we first moved in, my wife and I were like, this place, we have to do it over. And to her better advisement over me, I was like, let's rip it out. She's like, let's live in it for a while. Let's understand the layout. Let's understand how we enter the home. And she was right. It did affect the overall design of the home. And what we have now, it totally suits our needs and our lifestyle. So no, that's a great point.
Yeah. So the one to that point, we have a lot of clients that do come in with the understanding of, hey, we're looking to remodel our kitchen because in the near future we're planning on moving. So to your guys' point, designing a space that's going to be desirable from resale value standpoint versus what's to their liking. It's definitely one way we approach design at LBK. But when it comes to, I guess, resale value, what are some of the things that new homeowner buyers are looking for? If someone were to go through a remodel and do projects, what are some of the key indicators that clients look for?
It's a good question. I mean, I think if we're talking about kitchens, we can talk about kitchens, and I had a couple thoughts on bathrooms too. There's like two of the big spaces, but like for like the kitchens that drop jaws when buyers walk in the door are ones that, like, formal dining spaces, it's not that there's no use for them, it's just they're not as widely used as they used to be. So kitchens and dining rooms that have been just like merged and now are this like oversized all-purpose space that you can kind of entertain in, and like a big island, like a big 4 or 5 top island if you have the space for it. Space that flows right out into like a deck or a patio area, like that nice congruent space that you could just see yourself working in every day, but then like entertaining in and just having a nice flow and everybody kind of feeling like they're kind of, all your guests are kind of a part of that space and that conversation. There's enough room for it. That's what people really kind of trip out about, I think that the design trends are kind of what's like hot this year and next year, like it comes and goes, So, and it's not to knock anybody who likes this stuff or is still doing it, but I remember for a long time, like everything was gray, right? And it's like, you saw so much of that for a few years and it kind of fizzled out, and you still see it going in. And if that's what people like, that's what they should do. But I always say, when designing a home, specifically if it has some kind of like distinct architectural style or it's like got some historic significance, honor that. Like if you're doing a design and you're thinking resale value and not just your own use, don't put something contemporary in your Victorian home, for example. Kind of let it live its, kind of its style, so to speak. So I think when it's well designed and well thought out and it kind of honors the architectural style that was built, and if it's something that's more, it's older or more significant like that, I think that's a big deal from a resale standpoint. Bathrooms, we're seeing, most of our buyers are like, I don't really use a tub. I don't need it. Like, just put a big shower in there. Like,
That's probably the most commonly asked question I receive. Is if I were to ever sell to someone, if I get rid of this tub, people are not going to want to buy it.
as long as you have, in my opinion, one bathroom somewhere in the house that has a bathtub, you're okay. Because, you think like if somebody's buying it with little kids, they need somewhere to kind of bathe the kids. As long as you have one, like it usually like one of the hall baths or something, you're okay. That's from what I see from a resale standpoint.
We have, yeah, we sold that.
I've gotten that question from people that are like up there in age and they're like, well, this is our last home. But I'm like, so why do you care about resale? Like, what, if you're going to be, if you're making the pine box move, but ultimately, yeah, like I agree. There should be at least one bathtub in the house, because if you're looking to market, which is pretty common to a younger family with kids, eventually, yes, they're going to use a shower, but for a large span of their childhood, they're going to be using a tub. So I agree.
So, Paul, how do you help homeowners evaluate whether investing in remodeling makes more sense versus possibly putting their house on the market?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you one example in particular. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but like, you'll get the call like, hey, we're kind of out of space, and we love this neighborhood though, and but we definitely need a little more space if we're going to stay. We're just trying to see if it's worth our while or not. So it just starts with that line of questions of like, okay, if I hadn't been in the house, which in most cases when I get these calls, I have been, because I sold them the property, but I'll say, just describe the house. What do you have now? What are you looking to add to it? What kind of space would you need to feel comfortable there? If you added that kind of space, how long could you see yourself living there, having done that project, And so that's kind of the line of questions I start with. And I'll say, look, let's look at what the property's worth right as it is. If you just did some basic spruce up to take, let's say you decided to move, so it's like the love it or list it thing, right? Although I'm not like the guy on love it or list it who's like, the real estate guy, he always tries to sell them a house. I think it's like all shtick, but like I'll like really guide them through it. Like, hey, let's just see what makes the most sense for you. And whatever makes the most sense, that's great. You should do that. So we'll look at like the value of the present home with just some minor improvements. If they decided to sell that and move, what are they going to walk away with to be able to invest in the next purchase? But then if they add the kind of space they're thinking of, or they improve the existing space to the level they're talking about, how does that boost value? And just kind of give them both analyses. Usually from there, they've got to then go and talk with you guys and see like, hey, what can we do here? Like, what is this going to cost us to do? And then that usually helps them make the decision, But again, it comes down to like, I think when you're getting into major remodeling, it starts to make sense if you could see yourself being there for 5+ more years because you did that project, then it's like, okay, let's really dive into this and invest the time and the effort into seeing what we can do with the space to stay put, And that's
a great point.
Yeah.
So how could a realtor like yourself partner with a design and build firm to make sure that the client's making the right decision?
I mean, when we have those conversations, I want to make sure, because my entire business is relationship built, that when my clients reach out to me for anything like that the person I'm referring to, I know if they hire them to do the job, they're going to do it with excellence, which you guys do, and that's why I have referred you. But they're going to guide them through the process in a way that I would, that just like, let me get this information in front of you. And then you're intelligent enough to do what you want with it, which is like analyze it and see what makes sense for you. I'm not going to try to push you in one direction or the other. Let me just show you what we can do, and you can decide what's going to make sense from there. Those and just communication. Just a clear path forward. If they decided they were going to do the project, what does that look like, and what are the costs going to look like? That's obviously important. That the cost of that project, when estimated, winds up being pretty closely on point when it's completed, unless they go with a bunch of, added, upgrades and stuff like that. Like, hey, I know we said we were going to do this, but now we're going to do this, but that it just winds up on target basically, and that's what makes me feel confident referring LBK or anybody I refer, is that I know they're going to give that same level of care and consultation to my clients that I do. It's a big deal.
I think it ultimately comes down to the client making an informed decision. They're going to do what's best for their family.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So going back to costs, so what are some of those, unexpected costs, whether it's remodeling or purchasing a new home, that clients don't necessarily think of right off the bat?
I could speak probably more to the purchasing a home aspect of it. I think that a lot of times folks will be like, I'm fine. The house is fine like it is. We could live with this for a while. And I mean, it's like clockwork. A lot of these houses are just good houses, but people just love to put their own touch on things. So I can't tell you how many times I'll talk to a client who, 6 months ago we sold them the house. I'm like, this is great, we love it right like it is, and they're like, hey, we're getting ready to tear into the bathrooms. So I think unexpected. Like, you're gonna want to do more stuff to the house than you think you do. Once you get there and it's yours and you've got the keys and you fall in love with it, you're gonna be cool investing in it, and that's totally fine. I think that when it comes to deciding whether to remodel existing space or move, one thing I always point out is this is going to be your transaction costs in and out if you decide to move, because it is a factor. It's a part of the equation. It's X% on average, out of an existing home, and then X% into the new one to buy. So I think that has to be baked into the overall analysis to make a really well-rounded decision. So
Nick, what's your thoughts on the remodeling side of that question?
I think it ties back into a lot of what you're talking about, specifically with timing. Like, how long do you plan on staying here, living here? And then going back to the question we were talking about earlier, which is, or not question so much, but the advisement of saying, hey, live in your house for a while, and giving that advisement of, I know you think it's great, just wait a little bit, live in it, and then start making decisions as far as what changes you want to make, how deep you want to go into that type of a project, and then, or how large of a project you want to take on, considering a budget. And then considering the longevity, how long are you going to stay in the home, and then when do you think you're going to look to sell? Because that's a huge part of it. It really is.
Yeah. Wait. So, question for you guys. So, when somebody calls you in for a design for a new project, do you like to start from square one, or do most of your clients they already have like the Pinterest boards and they kind of have a million different ideas already before you get there?
To be honest, we have certain clients that come to us because they have absolutely no direction and trying to figure out just where to start the process. And sometimes that's more of a realistic conversation of, it doesn't make sense to move, where does it make sense to renovate? That's one of the first conversations that we typically have.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we do have a lot of our clients that love to come in with drawings that they've done over the years and their inspiration boards and Pinterest and everything they found on the house. So we get a little bit of a mixture of both.
That's cool.
It's a good time.
It's fun. Statistically, I think they say 95% of homeowners say that the house that they own and live in is their single largest asset, and it's kind of like, unlike investment real estate, which you're just trying to maximize profitability. And you want it to appreciate well over time. I think that there's something to be said about investing in the house you live in, sometimes just for the fun of it, for the enjoyment of it, just because you love it, so you could sit there and say, okay, what's it worth now? What's it worth later? But at the end of the day, it's like, what does our life look like if we don't do this project? And what does it look like if we do? And how is redoing this space or adding this space going to enhance our lives? And I think people make those decisions, on that kind of stuff more based on how they know life is going to be once that asset that they own, the place they call home is just it's designed the way they want to. And I think it's pretty exciting.
No, you're spot on. It's definitely going to be arguably the biggest investment of someone's lifetime. And then once you do buy that house, probably the second biggest investment you're ever going to make is possibly doing a renovation, with a kitchen or a first floor remodel or all the above. So,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and I could say usually from what I've seen from experience, or when it comes to people being really happy with their investment in a remodel, are people who usually come with some information to the table, but not too much information. So it's like, hire us because we're professionals at doing this. Tell us your ideas and let us, create some drawings and visions for you as far as how we interpret it. Those people tend to get the most excited. My favorite words till this day is when people come in for a design budget review meeting, they look at these drawings for the first time that we put up on these TVs here, and they say, wow, we never thought of that. And then my internal in my head response is, exactly. That's what we're that's what we're here for.
That's awesome.
So those are some of the happiest clients we see.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think so, to your point, a lot of the clients that do come in, to whether talking about putting their house on the market or starting a remodel, it's typically the ones that have a little bit direction of what they want to do, but they don't have the overall picture. They need
That extra push to figure out what makes the most sense for them and their family.
Yeah, sure. That's great.
Well, I think that concludes today's episodes. Paul, appreciate you joining us. Nick, thank you for attending today's podcast.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to come. Enjoyed the conversation.
Final words, Paul, for the people.
No, I really enjoyed the conversation. I love the work you guys are doing, and to me, I think it's one of the joys of my work is to to sell a client a home, and then they have it for years and years, and then to just see what they do over the span of time to make it their own. It's so cool, and like you guys are right at the helm of actually making it happen for them. I think that's pretty neat. That I admire that. It's you guys are doing good work, and it's cool to see how it turns out.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, you guys are doing a great
We
job.
try to make it,
Yeah.
and usually by the time we're working with that client, it's kind of we're downstream, so it's hard for us to go back the other way. But we'll make sure that we always do a good job of making you look good
And
every single
that
time.
means so much, like to get the feedback from the folks you've helped. That makes me just happy as could be, because it boosts my credibility to know great people that I can connect them with, and then it makes their home ownership experience so much more enjoyable, right? So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, appreciate everyone tuning in. This concludes today's episode of Elevate and Renovate. If you like what today's episode brought and you want to attend future videos, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube video and our podcast. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. Thank you.